part two. This is part two of gay, black, trans black, straight bisexual, straight. This is the conversation what we're trying to have. I know that a lot of people that have some criticisms about us being in the echo chamber. You know what I'm saying? So what we're going to attempt to do tonight, you know what I'm saying, with the wonderful Hope, with the wonderful Jay, is get into our bag and kind of have some crucial conversations that's going to definitely disrupt the comfort zone. We're going to definitely have a bit of an uncomfortable conversation or conversations today. Anything y'all want to add to it before I get straight into the questions?
Keep it cute in the comments. Keep it cute in the
Good
comments.
one. That's a good one. Keep it cute in the comments.
Keep it cute in the comments.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
In the comments.
When I tell you, you look great on tonight.
Oh, thank you.
You know I ain't all the way gay now.
Oh goodness.
Here you go.
Here you go. Already.
Even though I'm wearing a hat and a hoodie, I ain't all the way gay. But go ahead.
We just started and you
already.
You know what I'm saying? Listen, man, this is the Unlikely Throuple. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, the Atlanta show is already sold out. So if you wanted to go to October 24th, I apologize. That show is sold out. But if you in DC or Houston,
come on now.
Come on and pull up on us, man. Come on and pull up on us. Today, I'm hoping that we can pull more of my fellow cisgender straight people. You feel me? When I say cisgender, I'm talking about that means you just identify with the gender you was assigned at birth, acknowledging that there are people that don't identify with the gender that was assigned at birth. That's what cisgender mean. I ain't trying to call nobody sissy or insult nobody. But I'm looking to pull more people that identify in terms of sexuality and gender, how identify into this. Not necessarily man, just straight cis. Today, we're going to ask some crucial questions because I know that in this Unlikely Throuple dialogue that we have, I'm hoping that some people will feel comfortable to kind of bring us some questions, man. Starting off, man, some people feel, why do gay men have to be so flamboyant? The questions we're going to be asking, the questions that I've gotten either directly from my comment section, comments that I've gotten from homeboys and cousins and uncles and aunties, in comment sections that in questions that I've just gotten from just being in dialogue with random people that's like, hey, consciously, you be on that gay shit? These are the questions I'm asking. I'm gonna put that hat on though, because I'm gonna try to push back and respond.
Okay, let's do it.
Jay,
why the girls gotta be so flamboyant?
Why the girls gotta be so flamboyant?
Why are y'all so pressed though? Like, what is anybody's expression hurting anybody else?
I don't want no punk to be around my kids.
Well, keep your kids in the goddamn house.
No, because you're the awkward one. You the one that's different. I'm trying to teach my kids to be a man, and you a punk. So
I'm gonna grab my hat. My hat. I see.
Okay, so let me break down a couple things. The first
break down the things.
The first thing is, I think flamboyant always is just trying to stuff a whole bunch of things in this very small box. It is not my fault that you have a narrow idea of how you can exist in the world. I do not give a shit about how you act just like your cousin them, act just like that nigga down the street, act just like old boy from around the way. If you want to be a round the way ass nigga, be you. Be basic, be dusty, be whatever the fuck you want to be. But I am not going to change the fact that my nails are green, the fact that I enjoy being in the skin I'm in, because I'm the only motherfucker in here. That's my truth.
Okay, but do you not? So I think that my thing is, when I hear conversations around that, do you not feel like it's your duty, right? Because kids are impressionable to then pull back when they're around, or do you feel like it's okay for young boys specifically to see you in all of your zestiness, if you will?
I think there's two questions in there. I'll answer the one you asked, but the one that I think is more important I can get to in a second. I always think it's appropriate to be appropriate around children, because just like I have a 2-year-old niece. I'm not gonna go in there cussing up a storm around her because that is not the decorum that her father someone I respect and know and love, has said is appropriate to act around her specifically, this particular kid. And I think that culturally, we just have some very interesting definitions around what appropriate looks like.
Definitely.
That, and I do acknowledge that it's situation specific, it is setting specific.
So
However,
I'm curious, real fast before you go. So, do you think it's appropriate to refer to the girls in front of children?
what do you mean refer?
Right.
Like literally being like, hey, I'm talking about gay men, but I'm going to call them the girls.
Mm.
Do I think
I'm
it's
not saying it's
appropriate to
inappropriate.
like
I'm just
say the
asking a question.
term the girls
Like,
around?
yes, literally that simple. That's literally what I'm asking.
Oh.
Hmm. No one's ever asked me that question. Would I say the girls around children?
Girls.
Ooh. The only reason that I don't have an answer is because I'm just not around kids that often.
Okay.
Like
Oh, yeah, so fuck
I'm
the kids.
around my niece. I'm around my niece, and so I have a very different relationship with her because I'm
Yeah, because I'm
related to her.
yeah, for
That
sure.
I'm her uncle, and so I will have conversation with her mama, and I might say it's the girls or whatever, but I don't even know. No, I probably would. I wouldn't say code switch, but I would probably tailor my conversation to the setting and the people I'm around.
Yeah.
Me, me.
Um,
However, I'm not gonna change who I am. Like I would wear. I'm wearing a Dear Black Gay Man shirt, hat, sweatshirt. I'm not gonna take this off because Joe Schmo and his son or daughter walked in. I'm gonna do me.
All
I
right.
want. I wonder though, because I think that this is a comment that comes up a lot for multiple different topics. And somebody said that there's a time and place for everything,
Hmm.
right? And so it's one of those things where,
Yeah, Marino. Shout out to
right,
you.
like I sit back and I say, like, okay, well, a time and place for people to be themselves, especially when themselves isn't disrespectful. Like, I don't think to me, it's not inherently disrespectful for a gay man to lovingly call his friends and his people like, oh girl, da da da, like whatever. Because to me, the thing that's interesting is that women will do it to their flamboyant gay friends all the time.
Yeah,
Like, oh, child, that's just Tyrone. I feel comfortable around him. You know how it is. I don't mean no disrespect.
yeah.
But then if a gay man does it inherently when he's referring to his friends and he's like, oh, child, that girl, Timothy. And then all of a sudden, the person has a problem with it, right? Then it's like, oh, don't do that in front of my kids. But you just did it 10 minutes ago when
Yeah.
you called me Gunkle Jay, like, or when you called me your punk friend before I got here, and you don't think I heard that. Like, those are those things that you do in front of your children that indicate that I'm different. But then when I own it in a way that's not negative, right? I think that what y'all really mean sometimes is like there's a time and a place for everything, but I want to teach my kid that it's bad before you get a chance to teach them that it's
They
good.
don't like us. They don't like us taking the power out of it.
Yeah, I
They
think
don't.
I think
Absolutely.
I think that's the issue. I think that's the reason why so many people ask gay black men specifically about being flamboyant. Is because being flamboyant is supposed to be something that's derogatory, and when a motherfucker just like
Right.
you said one time, Jay, you gay as Christmas. It's like when a person is that proud to live in their skin, it make other people be pissed off because what you now taking on pride is supposed to be a diss, flamboyant gay ass.
Yeah,
Saying so now you happy
yeah.
flamboyant? Motherfucker, you taking power from me. You know what I'm saying? That's how I take
Right.
it. Shit. That's
But
Right.
the
that's a little
funny
bit
thing
more,
about all of that, the funny thing about all of that comes up when I wear this get up to the barbershop and to the gym. I can't tell you how many straight men will be ass naked in the locker room at the gym till I walk in this. Even though I lift heavier than them, they girl was just talking to me on the floor in the gym. I don't want them because they dusty and their feet is nasty.
it's
But all of a sudden they clutching pearls, proverbial straight nigga pearls, because I have taken the power out of whatever homophobic, sexist, misogynistic slurs that they spewing in their head. I'm okay living in my skin. People are okay with sexuality when they feel like I'm going to hide it or I'm insecure about it. But the second that I be bold enough to say I'm a gay man and I'm wearing the deer black, I got the sweatshirt and the hat to prove it, is when that's when they get off for Clemson and don't know what to do.
Let me ask you
And
this then.
I love those experiences. I love making straight niggas nervous. I love
So
it.
follow-up question. When it comes to making straight niggas nervous, and or when straight niggas assume that you automatically want to be with them or want to sleep with them or want to hit on them because you gay, what has been your responses, especially when you find the nigga to be unattractive or you feel like they ugly as hell, or you feel like what they get is not what you into? I'm just
in
curious.
those
I know that a lot of my
instances,
homeboys, I be having a hard time explaining, like, hey, bro, a nigga might be gay, but they might not be into you.
but in those instances, I will tell you my biggest advocates have been straight black women because, well, I won't even say straight. I'll just say black women because it could be, a trans black woman. It could be any kind of black woman. But what black women have stood on business about is to Joe Schmo who thinks that every gay dude wants him. Black women don't want you, and gay men are pickier than they are. That's what they say.
Nigga, you heard somebody
So
feeling you say that shit. You heard somebody
I'm
feeling
just like, black women don't even want you, and we 1,000 times pickier sometimes than they are. So why on earth would you think that I want your crusty ankles and your ashy knees? Why on earth would
Hey,
I ever?
with that being said, let me ask this follow question. I'm actually curious for
The
Hope as
better
well.
question is why don't y'all moisturize? That's the better fucking question.
Because
Where is the
moisturizing is
baby
gay.
oil gel? Where
Moisturizing is
is the
gay.
shea butter? Where
That's gay.
is
A real man is
I
ashy, bro.
cannot.
A real man gonna be ashy, a little crusty, let you know that he
the fish scales on your legs is nasty, bro.
skills. Hey, this is my follow-up question.
But I'm
We
just
about to
I'm
now we
just
hey, now we going there,
I'm off
man.
topic
People
here.
in the audience, you feel me? Y'all feel free. Thank y'all for hitting the comment section. Everybody,
Right.
some people in my audience believe that gay men don't have a personality and only emanate black women. Jay, what do you say to this? Hope, what do you say to this? Some people in my
I'll
audience
let
believe
Hope
that
answer
gay
that
men
one
don't have a
first.
personality and only emulate aesthetics of black women trying to be black women. As a black man,
No,
I try to explain to them that the culture that y'all come from, or the LGBT culture and being feminine and how cis women feminine, it's not the same thing in terms of the slang and the lingo. And I think that a lot of times we believe that, you know what I mean? So I'm just curious for y'all. I'll just be the straight dude, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just
if I
curious.
could, Hope, can I answer that one first? Let me be clear. What most of us know is black culture now started with black trans people, and then black gay men picked it up from there. So every time Tamar or Nene Leaks does her tongue pop, she probably got it from some gay man who did something, and he definitely got it from some trans person who was just bold enough to be his or herself. That is the way culture happens. Every time you see a trend, I guarantee you it started with somebody who was just bold enough inside LGBTQ culture to be themselves. That's where skinny jeans came from. That's where stacked jeans came from. That's where tongue pops and hair flips and Saucy Santana and a bob and all the things that we know to be pop culture, to be most aspects of any culture, probably started with some trans person who said, I'm gonna just wake up and do me.
Yeah.
And then that became gay men's response to just wake up and do me, their permission to do me. And that trickled down to straight women and all the things that came after it. So the idea that gay culture, gay men, or anybody in LGBT culture does not have personality is just straight people trying to grasp at power over something that they did not originate.
Definitely.
That is colonizing culture.
Yeah.
And I
Before Hope
don't, and
goes,
I
can you
think,
answer Michaela's question right
and
here
it's
too?
some bullshit.
Can you answer Michaela's question right here before Hope goes? Because she asked a question. We're trying to engage with the comment section. Also, make
So
sure
if
y'all get them tickets for DC in Houston, man.
Michaela says, so if a child reads your apparel and asks what it means, how would you explain it in a child-friendly manner? First, if a child, someone who is a minor, high school age or younger, comes up to me and asks me about my apparel, I'll say, you need to talk to your parents. It's not my responsibility to parent a child. I don't have any children. If consciously, or If Hope has
Yeah, I
kids,
was
y'all
playing
and they
Taylor.
come up to me,
My kids ask that. I tell my kids that they mean they love the same gender. That mean that how me and your mama together. If they say they gay, that mean that whatever gender they identify as, they love and want to be with them. How I'm with your mama. And if shit,
but I would say it is not. Know that in that child's household, that is a age appropriate conversation for anybody, and it's not my job to dictate that. I just get to live my Black gay life, and if such a question comes up, then I am going to defer to that
yeah,
person's
yeah.
guardian,
That's
their
your mama.
parents. That it if you ask your mama what is gay mean, that's between you and her, or you and your dad. But it's not my job to introduce new things to you. I'm just living my Black gay life, and if they happen to interact with me, that is their thing. Same
Oh,
thing. Even if my niece come and ask me what is gay, ask your mama, ask your daddy, or I will ask their permission to have that conversation with her in a way, and go through what I'm gonna say before I just be like, hey, it's because you know, birds and the bees, or birds and the birds and bees and the bees.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Um, I take a different stance just because I fear that people will get the same experience that I got, right? And it's that in my household, I was asking the question because I was going to school and being called a sissy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked somebody what a sissy was, the explanation made sense to me. And so I started calling myself a sissy because that's who I was. The person that they had described was me. And so when they say that, oh, usually it's a young boy who is, very girly and tends to like other boys. And this came from a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
This teacher didn't give me context to also
there's a
say,
connotation of it.
but also, that's not a good thing to say that you are because people will pick on you, or because this is a nuanced conversation, or even at that age, it would have got me in trouble. But she didn't explain it to me and then talk to my mom so that I knew not to go around school for the next 2 weeks saying, oh, I'm a sissy, I'm a sissy, I'm a sissy, because I didn't understand that. And so I think that, like, I think about how many other children are asking because they're seeing things that they feel like they identify with, but then they're getting people who are telling them, like, oh, go ask your mama. And your mom becomes your first bully unintentionally because she don't realize why you're asking, or your grandpa, or whoever your person is. You go back and you ask this person and you get a definition, and the first thing that you want to do is run away from that because now you see that there are negative implications with that, with the people that you love. I think that honestly, I would have had a different experience if I would have asked my mom first because her response would have been visceral. And so I think that I would have probably tried to do a better job of pretending or hiding or whatever. But by the time I understood how my mother felt about it, I was already comfortable. I was comfortable, like, with the picking. I was comfortable with the idea that I was going to have to fight a couple of people in the schoolyard. I didn't know why, for real, still. But I was comfortable with it because I was like, well, if I like boys, I like boys. I don't get why this is a big deal. And I don't think it was until like I was in the third or the fourth grade where a white woman who was my theater teacher sat me down and explained to me. And she was just like, babe, you're different. And there are going to be people that don't like you because you are different in that
Mm-hmm.
way. And so, if you're going to wear tutus, let's say in this classroom, this is going to be your safe space. Whoever you want to be in this classroom, if you want to be Tinkerbell, you can be Tinkerbell. If you want to be Tarzan, you can be Tarzan, but only in this classroom because I want to keep you safe. And that was the first time that I learned to suppress parts of myself in order to avoid the world. And so I think, like, if a kid came to me, I think I would have to play it by ear as to why. I might be getting asked this question, because if this is a kid that appears to be like a cis kid that just wants to understand it, I think I lean towards Jay. Like, absolutely. Oh, maybe you should ask your parents, right? But I think if I'm talking to a child who is obviously queer and trying to figure it out because they're getting picked on and they want to know why, I think that I think I would take the opportunity to like both educate about what it is, but then also let them know how the world is
Yeah,
gonna work.
yeah,
Yeah, I think I think it depends. The distinction for me, what you're talking about, because I agree with you, is proximity. Like
Mhm.
if I'm proximal to this kid to where I have some understanding of who they are and what they may be dealing with, then yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. But if I'm in Walmart
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Fuck not.
and because my niece does this all the time, she'll talk to everybody, ask all
Hmm.
kind of questions, and
man.
if it's just talking to a random person, then then that's when I'm like, oh, talk to your mama, because I ain't gonna have a whole gender studies class or a human sexuality discussion
And I realize
in
that's
aisle
where
19
my
at the
privilege come in.
Walmart.
I think I feel like that's where my privilege come in, and that's why I feel
Hmm.
like me being positioned how I'm positioned, knowing what I'm knowing. Where I think that most times I would not give a fuck about that, but I recognize that I don't have as much skin in the game, literally,
Hmm.
in terms of explaining this to a child and them being like, "Hey, consciously or George Lee told me this." You know what I'm saying? I know that it's gonna be different. Now, them saying Hope said this or Jay said this, and you know what I'm saying, like shit, y'all are not of the norm, sexuality or gender. They're gonna come
Hmm.
at you know what I'm saying. So I feel like that's to me in my mind, that's what it means to be like an ally and accomplice, to be able to like put myself in situations and or be willing to go a little step further. That I know that it's gonna bring some animosity or some alienation, but shit, it's like be
But
mad.
you
Oh
out here
well,
now, bro.
yeah.
But
I'm sorry.
the interesting thing is, I had a similar experience with what Hope described, but it wasn't being called a sissy; it was being called a nigger, and it was the
Mm.
white people that lived across the street. And the little boy called me that. I was like, "What is that?" And I'm 6, he's 6. He told me, "Oh, this is what it is," and I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah,
that
I'm a
sounds
nigga.
like me."
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
a nigger, and
yeah.
3 weeks I'm going through world just thinking, "Oh, I'm a nigger." And
Hmm.
then I told my dad, my African daddy,
Whoo!
Mm.
who I swear to God, he almost went to jail. Allegedly. He almost went to jail allegedly. But that was 35 years ago. So
Yeah,
it's just, I think proximity when it comes to titles and labels is important to to be mindful of when you talking to children. And now, granted enough, because mine dealt with just blackness, I had an ally in my father. But
Mm.
years
Hmm.
later, when it's dealing with sexuality, I didn't have so many allies to the same degree. And
Hmm.
man.
then my experience was very much like Hope, where I did have a band teacher who was like, "Let me let come on in and bring your saxophone with you, because I got to tell you stuff about the world."
Hey, based off what you just said, it's like it segs way back right into another question that I have. You know what I'm saying, from people in my audience and things like that. Especially would have been the election year, and a lot of people being bamboozled and hoodwinked into uh being in cahoots with KKK toting white supremacists in name of keeping the gays out of the classroom and shit like that. So here's my question, man. Some people in my audience think that the LGBT community has more power than the black community. Do y'all agree or disagree? And feel free to give nuance to the answer. I know
Bitch,
how.
I'm black. I'm
Yeah,
black. Like I'm sick.
I'm thinking like I'm answering
Like, bitch, I'm black. And I hate the fact that I have to like explain this to people. Like, does my skin color change when I say, "Oh, hi, I'm a trans person," or am I still a black bitch walking out here? Like, I think that that's the part that black people who have an issue or who like have this like bullshit understanding. That's what works my pussy with y'all, because it just makes me go like, do you think that somehow racism stops because I'm queer? If you don't like queer people and white people, some of them don't like black people or anything that's off, what makes you think that I'm gonna go over there and escape racism just because I'm queer? Them, like, I think that there's a lot of misinformation about the ways in which we get to navigate the world once we find queerness. White people are not running to pick up Black queer children and make them a part of the agenda because they would rather keep any piece of that looking like them.
Facts.
They know how to like galvanize, and they know how to work with, and they know how to find resource for queers that look like them. That is why you will still find white queer people that are gay as Christmas and racist as fuck,
Right.
that are fucking and sucking on boys and doing all of the things on Grindr with Black men,
They gay
but
as they
racist as
racist as hell.
fuck.
White supremacists. They just like that thing.
They
That
did
thing
say
black men, but they don't like black men.
they did say the grinder damn near shut down RNC time.
During the RNC. But okay, so there's a thing that I want to like make sure that is known. Because
Yes.
Melvin Johnson, like, I'm not coming for you, but I'm gonna speak with passion. So Melvin Johnson, let me say this. You cannot hide your sexuality all the time. And you admitted earlier in the chat that you are a masculine affirming gay man. Great for you. Love it. Cookies all around. There are certain people that from the time they are born, you can tell that their child got sugar in their tank, and there's nothing that they can do about
That's
it.
the truth.
And there's nothing that they can do about it. And this is before children know anything about sexuality,
Or gender.
fucking, humping, gender. They haven't even had their first hard on yet. And you like, oh baby, I
You're
see that
gay. Yeah,
already.
definitely. You a little
You're
primitive.
gay.
Definitely. Dog, I know.
I
And
was one of those. I was
I
one of those.
think, I think that we need to be very mindful about saying things like, oh, I'm Black first because, oh, I could hide this or I could turn this off or I could whatever. Cool. But even if we take it a step further, what about non-passable trans girls? What about non-passable trans men? What about non-binary people who fit the aesthetic of like doing things in a
Yeah,
way
being
that lets
androgynous as
people
hell.
know that
Like,
they're
yeah, definitely.
androgynous, right?
Yeah.
What about those people? My sexuality, right? Sexuality and mannerisms are two different things, but those things are still things that people cannot control or hide. You
Facts.
can tell a person to tone something down. Who they are is who they are is who they are. There's 1,001 parents right now to this day throwing their gay ass son in somebody's little league football team, and he is trying his damnedest, and he still looks like the softest powder puff running down that field because that is who he is.
That
And
was
I
me too.
think that we need to also like be really mindful of the fact that like we always want to throw the monkey wrench in or move the goalpost because we don't want to acknowledge that people are just fucking horrible and mean to queer people, especially when they can see queerness in them or perceived queerness, because sometimes a man is just metrosexual, sometimes a man is just feminine, sometimes a man
And
just
that's the
likes to
point I'm about
keep
to hit
himself
you on right
up.
there too. That's the point I'm about to go to. Is like I agree. I agree. You feel me, Melvin? There is a difference between sexuality and mannerisms. What I do know is that everything we talking about though is sexualized. So there are particular mannerisms that if you went into a black barber shop and did, you ain't gotta throw no dick, you ain't gotta suck no dick, you ain't gotta be talking about
None.
nothing gay, but you did a particular mannerism or you said a word in a particular way. And the way that you said that was sexualized. That sexualization of that word, that dress, that mannerism you did, that did proceed, you feel me, in different instances. What we talking about? Think about it. If you're in a black barber and when you're in black spaces and you faced with homophobia, being black first does not make you immune to that homophobic violence or that violence that's centered around a perceived notion of your sexuality. Now, I think that we have to be very careful. For me, this being a warrior of intersectionality, how we think about different identity sets coming before the other one. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I know as a black man, I know there's certain men that say they're a man for their black, and there's certain men that say they black for their man. What I know is that I'm always already met with both of those at the
At the
forefront.
same
I know that
time.
when a white woman clutches her purse, she clutching her purse because I'm a black man. She fears my black masculinity, not the masculinity, not the blackness, together the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? Even this. When people see me on social media and I'm talking about white supremacy in one post, and you thought, man, nigga, they're smart as hell, I'm gonna give them a follow. And that next post, I said, black trans women have this, that, and the other. They didn't give a damn about the black first. As a matter of fact, when I get that unfollow button, the same how you follow me, I forefront the blackness. That did not that didn't lend to humanity. That didn't lend to rationale. It was like, we got one of these niggas again. I liked him. He was talking about racism, but that gay shit, I can't do it. I think that's the dangerous part. And when we talk about it, and then take it like this, from a cisgender standpoint, black women, and a black woman was the person, you feel me, a cisgender black woman who made intersectionality. She gonna tell you a black woman being forced to think about whether they woman first or black first is very, very dangerous because they always already being persecuted, marginalized, excluded for being a black woman. Not just a woman, not just black, but when you put those two things together, I think that's a very dangerous notion. You feel me? To be like, shit, I'm black first. It's like,
So,
yeah, in what context? You know what I'm saying? Because
so I
Dr.
add,
Bali will be like, you gay at? You know what I'm saying? Like that'll be a different thing. You feel me?
so I add a, a sprinkle of a couple things because at one point in my evolution as a black gay person, black gay man, I did say I was black first.
I get it. It makes sense.
But but what I had to learn for myself is that being able to say that and being able to believe it is privilege because there are many people, like to Hope's point, that don't have the choice of being one or the other. I I have the privilege of appearing straight, maybe until I open my mouth, but appearing straight until I put on the sweatshirt or I have the painted nails or whatever. And that privilege that I have over feminine presenting men, over trans people of certain identities and certain expressions, over several others, is something that I have to be mindful of as I go into spaces. And more importantly, that I can't be the agent of exacerbating a this versus that. It that doesn't help anybody by me saying that femininity is a learned behavior, that masculinity is a learned behavior. All these things exist for all of us at the same time. And my job as someone who may have some piece of masculine privilege, because I do, is to use that privilege to disrupt my privilege. Like I need to be able to hold up and create space for and allow others to walk through the same doors so that privilege is not a thing one day down the line wherever. But for you, Melvin, in the chat, I would say that yes, you might be black first, which I can respect,
Respect.
but that ain't the case for everybody. And most importantly, how are you using your black firstness to make sure that people who may not identify the way you do have the same space, the same capacity and culture? That would be my question to you.
And just before I back though another question, the reason why also when we say being black first, you feel me, becomes dangerous. What I know is somebody that come from a Pan-African background, that come from an Afro-pessimist framework. A lot of times when people that are non-normative, where it may be your sexuality, your gender, your ability, talk about being black first, a motherfucker will tell you, hey, you black first. All that other shit no longer matters. Or you talking about and emphasizing those other identities, now they feel like taking your blackness to a back seat. So now how can we be in community and talk about strategies and methods and fight white supremacy when I'm telling you we got a forefront being black first? And you and I know that the way you as a black gay masculine man and the way that me as a straight masculine man deal with white supremacy is two different ways. Don't get me wrong, white supremacy both on our ass. But we know that the way in which white supremacy is going to be deployed at us, the way in which we're going to be excluded, it's going to be a little unique, especially when I recognize how particular masculine performances are always already seen as being threatful and how some aren't. You know what I'm saying? That's what I would say. You feel me?
Can I
Welcome to
respond to that last
what
message
I
you
would say.
sent? Because I don't want now. Granted enough, as someone who live streams, I don't want Melvin to suck up the whole conversation. But I
No,
do
no, no,
want
no.
to just,
We're gonna keep the conversation going
I
at
do
all.
just
But
want to put.
Melvin is pushing the conversation forward, though. I appreciate you, Melvin. We're not picking on you. I really appreciate the contribution you've made to the dialogue.
But I do want to just notice that the idea, Melvin, that you said, you tell me when people see you, don't notice your skin tone. It's not that they don't notice my skin tone. It is that there several things can be noticed at the same time. And in my case, because of how I express, they people I would imagine, because I've never been another person looking at me, but I would imagine people are able to pick up on the fact that I'm black. They pick up on the fact that I'm a man. And in my case, they also pick up on the fact that I'm gay. And I may have a little sugar in my tank. All of those things happen at the same
Simultaneous.
time when I walk into a room. Now, because you are masculine identified or masculine expressing, you might think people only pick up on your blackness and manness and masculinity first because your gayness is buried or not as salient as it is for other people. But that in itself, friend, is the privilege. You get to be masculine and masculine presenting and male privilege. That is the privilege. And I'm just saying that does not apply to everybody the way that you make it seem like it does in these comments.
But my thing is, you know that. Right, like, and I have a very low tolerance for grown ass people who want to act like they don't know something. Like, you know that, and you know that because as a masculine gay man who is talking the way that you're talking in these comments, I could only assume, right, that you've been a part of either private or public conversations with feminine gay men, and you're probably one of those people on Grinder that's like, no fast, no femmes. You're probably one of those people that actively moves away from the gay men that would be identified as gay because, you know, you don't want to be associated with that. Right. And I'm saying these things with the understanding that I don't know you from a can of paint. You could be the nicest guy with all of the sissy friends in the world. Right. But based off of the way that you're talking, and based off of how I know a lot of masculine men to talk, and I actually am gonna pull this back through full 360 to your first comment. It's not that people don't like you because you are masculine. A lot of the queers don't like you because y'all pull this shit. Oh, we ain't got representation, we ain't got this, we ain't got that because y'all faggots out here taking up all the space, and that's what they think gay look like. Cool. So show them what gay look like. Oh nah, I don't want nobody in my business though. Like I ain't trying to be a. So how the fuck they supposed to know you exist if you don't want them to know that you exist? Like make it make sense. And so then what y'all do is y'all turn around and y'all say things like, "Oh, people don't like me. People don't like the fact that I'm masculine because everybody want a sissy friend." And it's like, no, people don't like masculine men that go out of their way to make everybody else within the queer community feel like we're the pariahs that make it hard for you to exist while being gay. When if it wasn't for the flamboyant sissy punk friend that's running around the street in a rainbow romper, you and your husband can't get secretly married or publicly married because nobody got the rights done. If all y'all are doing is trolling each other at Piedmont Park at 12 a.m. and having relationships for 20 years that never go anywhere, but everybody know that y'all together, but nobody knows that y'all together, then you have no rights, you have no space, you have no room to be and live and thrive and all of the things. But then y'all get upset at the people who do those things because you feel like you should be seen. Okay, so be seen. Go be seen then. But if you don't want to be seen, if you don't like the representation, if you don't like, you know what I'm saying? But also, what I want to say is that I already named that I don't know you from a can of paint, Melvin. So when the hit dog starts hollering, be mindful that I didn't say that that's who you were. I verbosely said I don't know you. You can have 1,000 sissy friends, but when things hit you, you feel like a person is in your room and you wondering where the hidden camera is. But I know 1,001 men like you. This
Hey,
conversation is not new for me, and I'm not willing to sugarcoat it.
as a residential straight, I think that y'all have brought me into a consciousness, goddamn, insight that I never thought about. And I think that for the straight people watching, I think this is why the unlikely throuple is a good dialogue for us to have, because a lot of times we only think about gay men as being flamboyant and feminine, and like Melvin is in the conversation, and like Hope is talking about, that masculine gay men do exist. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of men that are gay that you wouldn't know that's gay, you feel me, based off looking at them, because they don't perform that way. They perform very masculine performance. With that being said, I feel like we should explode the way we understand what it means to be gay, especially when we think about the mannerisms. Because shit, you how they would say, you might miss some shit you can clock if you're looking at the wrong time. God damn it, if you
Come
look
on
at the
now.
wrong, you're gonna miss some shit. You know what I'm saying? But this
But
keeping it.
hold on right there, because that's the funniest part about being gay, especially around straight people.
Right.
When I'm at the family reunion or the cookout, or my brother is straight, he and his wife, magnificent couple. But I walk in, I'll be like, oh, gay. And all the straight people would be like, I never would have. How do you know? Because I know, because I have embraced myself enough to know when I'm looking in a mirror. Like I know something is not what y'all think it is. And y'all are so oblivious to shit because you're over here trying not to be zesty instead of actually being able to see what's staring you in the face and talking to you. And it always baffles me how oblivious straight people are to actual gayness. Instead, they want to focus on all this other nonsense bullshit that has no bearing on who a person is.
Wait, pause, because I love that, but I always forget this point whenever I'm in conversation, and I'm happy that you said it this way. What I've also noticed is that, especially within Black community, straight people will have the most motherfucking empathy for a bitch who ain't even real. Y'all sat back and y'all watched Pose, and y'all motherfucker was madder than a bitch about Candy getting killed on Pose. Y'all was like, what? I'm talking about the men, the women, the motherfuckers that go to church on Sunday and say that's not coming in my house. Y'all were pissed. Y'all was on the Twitter like, how dare they? Da, 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 da. Y'all had all of this smoke for Ryan Murphy killing off Candy. But it's a trans girl up the street that was getting mocked on her way to the bus stop, and you said nothing. There's a girl that you go to school with that get her ass bopped every day on the way into school. And y'all have more affinity and empathy for characters and people who are not real than y'all do for the people that y'all walk past every single day. And you think that we don't notice that your activism and your, ooh, I think I get it now, stops when the episode does. And that's why conversations like these are important.
For sure. But now I'll take that one step further, Hope, because that is not just the burden of straight people watching Pose. That's the burden of all the people watching Pose. Because I know many, many, many Black gay men who looked at Candy dying on Pose, or identify with Electra and her amazing reads, or all of the things, but do nothing for trans people, and we're supposedly in the same culture. So it's not just straight people, because we have this Black camaraderie, but it's also LGBT people, LGBTQ plus people who are not activating for our partners, because that same thing happens with, bi erasure and people not acknowledging that the plight and the difficulty of being a trans person in this country or on this planet. Like, all these things happen where you could do more, but a lot of times we don't, because I would much rather watch Ryan Murphy's latest show on TV as opposed to activate for the girl that actually lives next door to me.
Right.
Or man, because trans men also face certain discriminations and whatnot. So it's just, I don't want to make it seem like straight people got this undue burden to bear. The girls got a whole bunch of activation that we could do ourselves, and I know that from being able to see it.
And that leads me to two things. First thing, a point. Second thing, gonna be a question. First point is, this is the reason why also when we talk about being something first, being Black first, being women first, doing this first, it really make it where it becomes almost like obsolete, or like it's inconsequential, because it's like, hey, when we're talking about the Black trans woman that's getting her ass jumped by a multitude of Black men, it's Black first. How is Black first operating in this instance? When the gay Black men or a gay Black man is jumped by 5 straight Black men in the locker room, how does being Black first make them immune or help them out in this situation? It doesn't. So we have to deal with what is, putting them in there. And what we know is that from an intersectional standpoint, they probably in that same space because they Black. But on the pause on that, it's like, shit, them all being Black, it's not stopping that gender sexual violence. Which brings me to the second thing. When I'm talking about trans humanity specifically to other cis straight people, they tend to sensationalize how within the LGBT community, a lot of motherfuckers don't respect transness and or acknowledge transness. So a question they posed to me, Conscious, how the fuck we supposed to respect and accept trans women when in the gay community, in the LGBT community, they don't even accept them, they don't accept each other? What is your response to that? I know what my response is, but I'm curious what y'all response is. Their response literally is like you're acknowledging. There are lesbian, gay, bisexual people that are extremely textbook transphobic. They can't accept trans people. So how you fuck us to accept trans people? What is the response?
If your best friend jump off a bridge, you gonna jump behind him?
Yes, girl. Yes. These girls don't have a thought between them.
I can't because my thing is these are just excuses to continue being what you were before, which is transmissive as fuck. Like just say you don't like trans people.
Just say
Like,
it.
but you don't need to have an excuse. You don't need to say, oh well, the gays don't like them, so I guess it's okay. You don't need to have an excuse to be hateful. Just be hateful, right? The problem is just like racist white folks, because you know that being racist is a problem. You don't
Wrong.
want to be called racist because you know that being transmissive is an issue. You don't want to be called transmissive or transphobic for some of y'all, but I don't use that word because, like y'all say, I'm not scared of trans people, but you are hateful unfoundedly. And so you're missic of those people. And it's one of those things where I sit back and I ask myself, how many different ways are y'all going to continue to ask us how you can say fuck me to my face?
Got it pinned, Ada. Yeah.
Because that's all I get from this question when people say that is how do I say fuck you without you getting mad about me saying fuck you? So like if I pose it like this, right? Like, well, gay boys don't really like y'all neither.
Oh, I
So if
expect
I say it like that, like
So
is it
if I
okay?
don't like you, is it okay?
Hey, you know what
Right.
my next question? My next question take me to is because it's like you really don't like trans people, and you figuring out the more diet nice way to be transmissive, to be oppressive, to be
Mhm.
when we start talking about trans people, specifically trans women in women's sports, I feel like it's usually the motherfucker that don't give a damn about women's sports. You ain't never watched women's sports. You probably can't even name me 5 women athletes, but you gonna figure out a way to sensationalize the participation around equity and around trans women shouldn't be in sports. It's like, hold on. You, uh, what? I know as a trans woman, it do I sound crazy feeling like motherfuckers read on you trying to weaponize women's sports to justify saying fuck trans women? That's how I feel. What do you say, trans woman?
If you didn't care about it before, then don't start caring about it now. And don't use women as a means to pretend like you give a fuck or as a means to pretend like you're less misogynistic. People will use that and say things like, oh, but like I have to protect women. Like we gotta
Right.
protect women. You wanna protect women? When that man called that lady a bitch in the motherfucking grocery store parking lot today, you should have said something. You want to protect women? When that young lady that you see getting sexually harassed at your job by the manager is continuously saying that she's uncomfortable and you do nothing, even though you're a man who has the power to say something, that's how you protect women.
I ain't gonna. I didn't want to go there, but this conversation has annoyed me the most ever since the quote unquote brick lady debacle happened. Because so many individuals love to sensationalize how trans women are really just men and they have no issue, should have no reason to be in the same ring. So, they'll go find me some picture of some trans woman that beat the hell out of this, other woman because, but then they literally turned around and justified a grown ass man hitting a woman with a bottle because they believe that she started it. And Houston Police Department said that she started it. So the whole tech women, trans women is really men fighting. They did not have that same energy when it was a cisgender man that identifies as a man. It really went. I was just really like, damn. So y'all say she lied. Let's say she lied. She lied, right? Does her lying justify being hit in the face with a bottle by a man? Or do y'all only talk about men hitting women when y'all can be transmissive and talk about women and that's how I felt that shit. Like y'all showing yourselves right now, especially because y'all love to say a nigga pandering and I this, that, and the other, but you're making the same exact. So it's like, so if a trans woman have a bottle and they in a goddamn parking lot, then it's good. Because you said the dude was good, but that's just me. That's how I sound on that shit. Like y'all pick and choose when you want to be ethical outrage, and you pick and choose when you want to say gender matters, and you pick and choose. In Texas we have mutual. It's what it's called. You know what I'm saying? Shit, mutual combat. Mutual combat. You hit me, I hit your ass back. Mutual combat. Y'all don't think mutual combat is justifiable in any other instance. except when you want to justify a woman getting their ass beat, but you want to protect
But
women.
I think you're exposing a whole bunch of hypocrisies that exist in our culture. For like, we could say the same thing about how people are so pro life when the baby is in the womb, but you don't want to protect the baby when it's out the womb. You don't want to protect the life of the woman that's carrying the baby. You don't want to protect all these things. And I think Hope is the one who said it's just weaponizing womanhood in a way that either justifies your fucked up thinking or that underpins your fucked up thinking with the lives of women. And neither of those are appropriate. But also, back to your previous point about, how do we protect women, trans people, people of trans experience, if the gays don't protect people of trans experience? The gotcha is, just like Hope said, you're looking for a way to say fuck me to my face without saying fuck me to my face, even though you are literally saying fuck me to my face. But nobody needs permission to be a good person. You do
That
not
part.
need to be invited into affirming the humanity of a human being. And I think that's where we get all fucked up in the head. Like, I can evolve in the way that I acknowledge your humanity. The way that I do that can get better over time, but I don't need a personalized invite from a trans person to be like, oh, trans people are people, and I need to respect you like a person. And I think that just the idea that we've got in a place in our culture where I have to be invited, or me respecting the agency and the humanity of human beings has to be an invitation or something that is is not basic for everybody, is signs of times. And the irony is, there was a comment in there that said that you got your arms too short to fight God and all this other stuff. But
Wait,
gotcha, bro.
I was going there. Just give me a minute.
But bro, sir, ma'am, whomever you are, I don't remember the person's name. Regardless of whatever that is, these are human beings. And I am not in a position, nor you, to say how this human being shows up in the world. My job is not to judge that. My job is just to see you, affirm you, give you space to be you. And the idea that you want that such a judgmental statement came out of nowhere just baffles me. It hurts my head. I legitimately need a BC powder and an aspirin because of that one comment.
But those things typically happen when a person who they perceive to be less than, or a person who they perceive to have less to say as a human being, is speaking truth to power. Then it's like, okay, I heard all of that, but fuck all of that because you're different. And it's them trying to wheel their way back into being like, I don't want to listen to this, and like understand that this person is a human being. And they like, people like having excuses for their bigotry, and they like when it shows up in ways that allow them to just say whatever the fuck they want to say, hoping that other people are gonna bandwagon it. But what I also find interesting is that when y'all
And
run
they
out of
do.
when y'all run out of the talking points that we're able to
Run out.
like knock down, you know what
Yeah.
y'all run to? That
Well,
same God that y'all
God.
don't know if I believe in. You don't know if
oh
I
God.
man,
believe in your
don't even
God.
started on that though. I'm gonna start on that one,
You,
boy.
but
I'm
like,
gonna
but that's
say
the
that
thing.
one.
You don't know if I
Oh,
believe in your God. You don't know if I'm boxing with your God. You don't know if I'm a whole ass atheist out here in these streets. Like, you don't know anything about your God. Is not the only God that people can serve. And so I
yeah.
think that when you base things off of that, like, you already setting yourself up to fail, because you don't know if I'm Buddhist. You don't know if I'm a fucking Shaolin monk. You don't know, like, you know nothing about
Yes.
who I am and what I believe in or what my God says. Because there are plenty of cultures where they recognize a third gender. Have you ever heard of Hydra? In India, that's a legal standing gender, meaning that when I go to India, if I wanted to, because of the God that they serve and the God that they believe in, not only is that a recognized gender, but they believe that trans people have powers. And they believe that trans people are God's dropped on earth to be able to bless their folks. And these are the same people that we get a lot of goods and services and all of that stuff from. And India don't go through a lot of famine and death and all of that shit. It makes you wonder. Which God should we be serving? The God that's protecting its people, and we don't hear a lot of shit about them going through the
Blasphemy.
stuff.
Blasphemy.
Or
You're
the
Christian
Christian
devil
God.
talk now.
You know
Of
what I'm
course the
saying?
trans woman talking about the satanic stuff.
And what's really interesting is like what I love is that people will sit back and say things like, "Oh, I don't have an issue with trans people. I don't have an issue with y'all. It's just that." So why would you call me an it or a thing? Have I done anything to you? Did
Hey,
I
you know
piss in
what I
your
done did
coffee
with
this
people?
morning?
I feel like I tell people like this all the time. Like, hey, I'm positive in the 1950s and 1960s, it was a whole bunch of white folks literally being like, I got no problem with the blacks. But do they
Mhm.
have to be educated next to my children? I have no issue with the niggers. But do we have to swim in the same swimming pools as them? I have
Mhm.
no issue with the Africans or with the people of African descent, but do we have to let them vote? I have no issue with the niggers. But do we have to
Mhm.
watch them on TV and do we have to hear them on the radio? To me, it's the same disclaimer that says that power and privilege never ever wants to be, you feel me, deconstructed or never want to be in proximity with something that's supposed to be
No.
under them. And to me, it's just like a lot of the disclaimers I done heard black people say, I ain't got no issue with the gays, but they gotta say it on, we gotta see them on TV. I ain't got no issue
Right.
with the gays, we
Do they
gotta hear them
gotta
on
be
the
so
radio. Like,
flamboyant?
I know a white person said, you got to be so flamboyant. I got no issue with the black. Do they gotta be so black? Like,
Mhm.
what are we saying? What's going on here? But
What
just
are we saying?
let's kick gears a little bit. I got more questions, right?
Go
But
ahead.
some of these questions I'm gonna save for when we live. Make sure you go to the link in the bio. I put the link in the comment section multiple times. I have a multitude of questions right here. You know what I'm saying? For the unlikely couple to be able to navigate and, you know, in the name of race, class, gender, ability, sexuality. And this time we're talking about gender and sexuality, but I think that all three of us have the range to be able to get up in that like that right there and down right there. We got done talking about children earlier, though, right?
Mhm.
Some people would ask, why or should a gay black man and a trans black woman care about reproductive freedom if y'all can't have kids? Right now we in election time. A lot of conversations is happening about reproduction, about Roe v. Wade, about all this, that, and the other. I'm gonna do a follow-up question about the cisgender shit. You know what I'm saying? But my first question is to people that don't know or people that wondering, why would a gay black man or a trans black or trans woman, you feel trans black woman, care about reproduction and y'all can't reproduce?
Before I get there, let me say one thing, because I'm trying my hardest not to be triggered by some of these comments.
Sometimes you gotta let them.
I
But
was gonna say
Yeah,
you gotta let that
but
go.
that shit go.
but
You gotta
okay.
ignore them.
All
Like,
right,
you gotta
all
let
right,
them.
all right, all
You
right.
gotta let them. You
Because
feel
I
me?
was about to
You
I
gotta
was about
ignore
to
them, man. Don't
ADHD
feed the
spiral.
trolls, Jay. Don't feed the trolls.
I will
Yeah.
Man.
say,
Don't
I
feed the
will say,
trolls.
I think that to set a couple records straight, like I don't see myself as someone to have children. I love being an uncle. I love being a cousin. I have a cousin who just had triplets, so I love the space that I have in these children's lives. Right? I don't. If I don't have kids, I will not be upset about it. I do want to get married though, and if my partner wants to have children, my husband wants to have children, then I'll
Discussing,
be
yeah.
happy as a father. But that's totally different. But the reason why non-birthing people should have should be mindful of the autonomy of birthing individuals, the agency, the humanity of birthing individuals is the same reason why I should be concerned about the lives of trans people, the same reason why I should be concerned about the lives of children that come into this world, because there should not be any right that is denied from one person that is granted to another. Nobody is going to tell me what I should do with my body as a non-birthing individual. I do not have a uterus. No one will ever tell me about my anatomy. The decisions that I make about my body, by and large, as far as the law is concerned, are between me and my doctor. And sometimes not even between me and my doctor. I can do a whole lot of things with my body. And if I am to enjoy that level of privilege, then I need to also protect people who do not enjoy that level of privilege. That is just being a person. And so if I can't in good conscience as a human being in the United States and of America contribute to any type of legislation, any type of movement that says rights that are afforded to me should not be afforded to everybody else. That is that regardless of the context. That's my stance on it.
Yeah, for sure. That's
And
real.
I'm very clear in using the terminology birthing parents and non-birthing parents, because not every person with the uterus is a woman, and not every person with the penis is a man, and we need to
And
be
all
very
of because you got a uterus
mindful
or
of that.
penis, don't mean you can birth. Goddamn, so that's why we got IVF and a whole bunch of shit
Right.
going on around here. We
And
got
so we gotta be mindful about language, but also everybody should get every right. Now there are certain rights that nobody should get. Like you shouldn't be able to kill people. But I believe that you shouldn't. No, none of us should be able to kill people, but that's a totally different topic. But as far as when it comes to bodily autonomy, we all should be able to just be ourselves between us and our doctor, and not have to worry about anybody else getting involved in it. That's my perspective.
okay.
I think I care because the second that they take something away from one person, it's a stepping stone or a tool that's used to then deconstruct something for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that it's even more sinister for me as a trans woman who oftentimes is assumed to be cis to not say that I care about it because, oh, I can't have children, oh, like the natural way. And so I don't care. Because what happens is when I go to the doctor, the assumption is that I can. When I'm having conversation in the nail salon, the assumption is that I can. And if I'm going out of my way to say these things and people don't know that tidbit about me, but I'm adding to this level of, oh, like, well, they don't care, so we shouldn't care. And that's how we vote. And I think that it does me a disservice at that point to add to the domino effect that's already taken place. There are already enough cisgender men. There are already enough like women who don't want to have kids, even though they
Yeah.
have the capability.
Yeah.
There's enough of those people that are doing that work for me. But as a person who does and who will eventually be a mom, it's important to me to make sure that before I start thinking about it, before me and my husband start to contemplate it, that the systems that are set up for us to win are still comparable for us when it's our time. You can't start caring about the issue only when it works for you. You can't start caring about the topics that be only when they're going to affect you. If there's something that a majority of people who are going through it right now in this moment are telling you is important, I think that it's best that we always do our research to figure out why it's important so that we align ourselves with things that fit our morality, right?
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, I don't think that it's not my job to then turn around and say, okay, well, I'm gonna wait till it matters to me and then I'm gonna advocate. That
Yeah.
just doesn't
Yeah,
seem fair,
man.
especially if
You
I'm
know what?
holding the space.
It's
You
a
know what I
bad
just
model of
learned
care.
when you said that, Hope? What I just realized is that's another way my privilege creeps up, because I am a man, right? I'm a black gay man. And so I don't even think I have to worry. It never even dawned on me that it's a domino effect, because I would say that you are much more marginalized as a black trans pan woman. And so you thinking about, taking the rights away from one group, because there are many aspects of your life where rights have been taken away in general. I ain't never dealt with that aside from the black part. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just
And I
hey,
think it's so interesting that you just opened my eyes to that just now, because I never thought of it as a domino effect, because that aspect of it has been lost on me until just now. That's so interesting.
hey,
I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Brandon Williams, brother, man. Listen, man. Right now, I'm giving you privilege and access to be a part of this virtual classroom. But right now, you acting like a little ass boy. You feel me? You acting like you in elementary school and you want some attention. So I think that if you want to be an attention whore, consciously comment section is not for you at all. So it's like right now, this your warning. You feel me? I'm giving you a warning and letting you know you should tread very lightly in how you comment next. Because right now, you about to get your privileges revoked, because right now you acting like a child. You see what I'm saying? You acting like a child, and you acting like you got some issues that you to deal with because you too worried about other people's booties. You too worried about what you too worried about. You feel me? So Brandon, tread lightly, because I can tell you like being a part of this conversation. That's the reason why you comment so much. I'm not gonna feed the trolls at all. I'm gonna keep the conversation going, but just know you say some wrong shit in my comment section, your privilege is gonna be revoked from this virtual classroom, my brother. Education is elevation. I might not be the educator for you. You know what I'm saying? But it's keeping just keeping it going though. Cause right now we're talking about children. You know what I'm saying? Talking about children
Mm-hmm.
a little bit and talking about reproduction. I'm curious, man. This is a very controversial question. I want to preface that. Very controversial question. I have gotten into heat arguments with different people about this question specifically. So I'm opposed to y'all, but I know it might cause a visceral response. Some people in my audience think that if trans, bisexual, intersex, gay people adopt, it'll confuse kids. Do y'all want to adopt? And what is y'all response to this criticism?
That's not my first go. We're likely gonna do IVF first, but um I think that that's bullshit. We've seen, and the numbers actually support that the children that are adopted by queer families are often kept longer and have healthier, longer lives within a one family household versus folks that are bounced around, within cisgender relationships or cisgender homes. They tend to, go throughout the system as with foster care people. And I think that that's really interesting that like to me, it's just really interesting how people always want to say like, "Oh, kids will be confused." Kids are some of the easiest people to just like give the. If you talk to a kid straight, they're just like, "Oh, okay, cool." It's when you're trying to justify some shit and you're talking in circles that they don't understand something. If a kid asks you what a trans person is, just tell them what the fuck a trans person is. All of this, oh, like I mean, because like, well, when a boy wanna da da, and then you gotta like, if you talk to a kid straight, then you like all you got to do is tell them like, hey, this is a person who did not feel comfortable. You know how you feel comfortable wearing your pigtails and your dresses and your shoes? This person didn't feel that way, but they do feel comfortable wearing, stuff like what your daddy wears. And they're like, oh, okay. And then they bounce on to go and do whatever the fuck they was doing before, right? And so I don't think that it's confusing if we're having conversations that take the nuance out while leading the innocence in. I
Yeah.
can have a real conversation
That's
with a 5 year
good.
old,
That was so
right?
good.
That was that's a bar right there. I hope we can cut that clip right there. Cut that clip right there. Because me, when I get this right here, I be so annoyed. I automatically get graphic, especially if children ain't around. Because to me, it's like, hey, fam, hey, straight person to straight person, you're gonna really act obtuse to me. So who taught you that your thing should get hard when you see some titties or you see some ass? Was your mama or your daddy? Or did this experience happen occurrently? It happened naturally. Who taught you to have an erection? Or did you discover your erection by itself? Because to me, the idea that kids gonna be confused to me is a very immature idea of sex and sexuality. Because to me, it says that it's like, hey, don't get me wrong. If there's anything, people get pushed into the closet, not the other way around. But to me, it's still like, hey, man. So what you telling me is that you were taught how you should be turned on specifically and when you get an erection or when your vagina get wet. What you telling me right now? When I get that, they usually understand me again. I'm like, well, I ain't trying to say that. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? That's how I see it. Like, what are you trying to say?
My thing is, as a trans woman who has been in space with several different men who are like, Hope, if I did not know that you were trans, we could move something, but because I know I just can't get around the mental block in my head that would allow me to do what I need to do, we can't do that. That lets me know, like, people like what they like, right? Like people like what they like, and they have an idea about how what they like is supposed to show up. And I think that that same thing goes for kids. Kids don't know how or why or what or when. All they know is that they like what they like. And I think if we can acknowledge those things if we can acknowledge those things for adults, then why can't we acknowledge those things for our kids and say like, okay, there you go. Like, and also, okay, why do we keep calling this thing confusion? Like, in life, you discover things about yourself. I think that there's a difference between being confused and self discovery, right? I'm not confused when I tell my mama that I want to run track because I want to see if that's where I want to be at. I'm just trying something out. Like, this is not confusion. It makes sense. I am discovering whether or not I like track. And I think that if we took relationships and did the same thing, it's like, I am not, all of a sudden, skating down the bunny slopes. I've just realized that I want to decide if I like white women or if I like white men or whatever. And the same thing applies for like when you are a man. It's just like, I'm not saying the thing that's interesting, and this might ruffle some feathers, but if a man decides that he want to see if that's for him, and he does that thing, is he now that thing because he sucked that dick, he gave that kiss, he
Most
held
people
that
say yeah.
hand?
Most
But
folks would say,
why?
yeah. Most folks, I think that what I realize is that most people view sexuality as being so static, and I recognize that for me, it's like if you play the piano one time, does it make you a pianist? No. If
No, I
you
think
goddamn
people
learn how to, it's like, does it make you a musician? No. But if you suck a dick one time, you gay forever. It's like, you know what I mean? Now, do I
well,
want
yeah,
to
I think
suck a
people
dick?
think
No,
of
but I think
people
that
don't
people that
think
want to
of
do that is like,
people don't think of sexuality. I don't think people think of it as static. It's just it's a bell you can't unring. Like you can't put toothpaste back in the tube. That's what I think of it. Because for instance, when I was in at middle school and high school and I was kissing and doing all and playing high and go get it with the girls, I was straight, so people thought, even though I was not. And then when I said I was bisexual, I could never go back to being straight because I was bisexual now, even though I wasn't. And I just said I was. And then I sucked a dick, and then I'm gay, and I can't
oh,
never go back. So I think people think of sexuality as like a one-way street as opposed to
For men.
for agreed for men, because I know a whole bunch of girls who played a little patty cake, and they straighten it, and they're fetishized by a lot of straight men that are interested
But
in because they are presumed bisexual or a freak or whatever they say about that.
But for all intents and purposes, a lot of those girls are lesbians and feel like because they have the option to have this normality. Like people talk about DL men, but they don't talk about DL women and how DL women are out here playing games in the streets too.
But
Because
also,
I've never
girl,
heard
can I
that
just
term,
tell you,
Danielle women.
it's because straight men are dumb as hell.
But also to
Straight
the monkey,
men
but also
are
to the hold on, though,
okay
they
being
wait, wait, wait,
they
wait,
taken
put in
care
the
wait,
hood
wait,
of.
wait,
about
wait.
two
Can we
women.
no? Can we pause? Because this has happened a couple of different times, and I need to be. I'm mad. So, and I don't give a fuck about looking like the angry mad person. I am not a trans.
Who
I am
said
a
that?
trans woman.
Oh,
Trans people are not transgenders. We are trans women, trans men, trans people. Stop making us like these its and
Object.
things.
Her thing is like object, like
I am a
around.
person. So when you refer to me, my name is Hope. Hope said, Hope did, Hope went, Hope X, Y, and Z. I am not a trans. A trans, and if you are going to refer to me by being trans, the trans girl, the trans
But also, if
person.
we said a black, if we was around some white folks and they said a black said, you would look at them like, what the fuck you say to me? Like, you know what I'm saying?
I
So
ain't
don't
even
act
see
up.
that.
Whoever's saying this, don't act
It's
up.
happened like multiple times, but like I'm just like
A
it
black.
annoys
People
me
like,
because there's enough conversations out about this that people should know better than to be doing that. And that to me just makes me feel like folks don't mind being woefully disrespectful. Like I am not a fucking object. I am not a thing. I'm not sitting here as a talking speaker. I'm a human being who's living and breathing and moving through the world. Like I really like to me, people be so pressed about fucking pronouns and they them don't make sense. A transgender makes sense though. That's phonetically correct.
education is
Like
elevation.
we gotta do better. We really gotta do better with that.
This hey, right now, she just tried to educate you on being able to read and write gender. And when you say a trans, you come off as being gender illiterate. That means you lack the ability to read and write transness and genderness period, but it also show you a bad person. Like you are purposely denying the humanity of a person, or you purposely trying to fragment their shit by talking about a trans. Because you know damn
Right.
well if a white person referred to your ass as a black, you know we getting at. So let's not do that. You know what I'm saying? Let's not don't be like that, y'all. I forgot the point we was even talking about, but like don't do that, y'all. Don't do that, man. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that at all.
But I think that because in my head I'm thinking, is it derogatory if somebody referred to you, Lee, as a straight?
No, but yes and no, right? To me, it's like turn the gaze, right? To me, it's turning the gaze, Gaze. You know what I'm saying? Because to me, it's like, oh, white, you're being. Because to me, it's like power and domination always matters in context. And what I know is being referred to as a straight compared to somebody being referred to as a gay or a trans. It's not the same thing at all. It's like literally, there's not no violence being brought to my body. I'm not being denied no access to no resources. A motherfucker being friendly with me. You know what I'm saying? Be the same
Right.
thing as being like, oh, white. Me calling a white person, oh, white, am I being derogatory? Yeah. But does it bring any bodily harm? No. Did it hurt your feelings? Probably hurt your feelings. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, it is not the same thing to me. You know what I'm saying? To me, it's like a conversation about power and domination is one I tend to think that we like to gloss over. That's why my beef be with a lot of the red pill, blue pill niggas. It's like, hey, you want to talk about gender with no context, with no idea, no extrapolation of power and domination. You want to think about gender being on a level playing field. We know when we're talking about sexual orientation or gender, we know that there is a paradigm of man over woman, straight over gay, cisgender over transgender. So what we know is that when somebody is seen as being powerless in a situation of being powerful in terms of power, it ain't the same thing. You know what I'm saying? But I do see what you're getting at. I ain't gonna act like
the reason I was asking is because I think, to Hope's point about willful ignorance, like people remain, and willfully so, remain illiterate and ignorant to certain topics because they've never. Now, I don't want to even put it that way because it makes it like it's an excuse, but
my thing
they
is,
willfully ignorant. That's it.
Period.
What I don't like, because this is usually, and I'm assuming that she Dolly Jazzy is a cis woman, right? What I don't like about comments like that is that this is the stuff that creates the further divide between trans women and cis women. Because my thing is, you just had two cisgender men explain to you that it's not about me not wanting to be called trans. And I just gave you an example. In my example, I said, call me a trans woman. The trans woman just said something just now that I agreed or disagreed with, right? It's not about me running from being trans. It's about the ideation that when you remove humanity from the conversation, it allows people to believe that I am to be treated like things that have no humanity, meaning that violence is okay, meaning that discrimination is okay, meaning that my bodily autonomy means nothing to you. And so when y'all sit back and say things, and then also, what it shows me and what it lets me know and how it makes me feel is that when you are having conversations about me, you're not doing so as even another human being. You're doing so as this thing to be discussed that does not have the same rights or feelings or
literally.
right, anything is you. And so when you push back and you say things like, oh, but like I don't mind when I'm called a straight black woman because that's what I am. But my
Not
thing
the
is,
same
it's
thing.
not the same thing, because the connotation behind being called a straight black woman does not deny you space or autonomy. You calling me trans is basically like you being like, oh, that thing over there says something.
Like
I guess like
illegals or
Literally.
positives,
right.
or
Like
all
literally, like
those
you
things.
define, like you're reducing all of her to just being a thing, a trans. It's like literally an object, a object. It's like in terms of grammar, when we start putting that a, you feel me, in front of the thing, it's like, yeah. You don't say a Bob or a Tom, you feel me? It's like we ain't talking about we talking about an object or a thing. And it's just like that's not good. That's not good. And especially that, it's like the conversation when our sister T.S. Madison was getting into it with our sister Jess Hilarious, and the conversation that happened in my comment section, I realized that we are so behind the eight ball that it's ways for cisgender women that identify as the gender they was assigned at birth, it's ways for them to be tricked and bamboozled by the motherfuckers that's actually trying to attack their womb, actually attacking their ovaries, to thinking that they not attacking them. The real attack is the trans women trying to call them cis. And it's just like, I was gonna pose this as a question, but it was something that made me so upset as somebody that advocates for women progression and trans women progression and just LGBTQ ally. It made me feel so nasty, icky, and made me feel defeated. I felt so vulnerable and so helpless that it was like, damn, here go two communities that I'm advocating for, that I advocate for, that I'm not necessarily a part of, because I'm not a black woman, I'm not a part of the LGBT community, but it hurt my feelings, it hurt my heart to see the back and forth, and more specifically, it hurted my feelings to see so many cisgender black women really be like, hey, these bitches trying to call me cis, and how you bitches gonna feel something you ain't never experienced before? I guess that's a question, you know what I'm saying? It's like some people pose the question, is like, hey, Conscious, how can trans women say they feel like a woman if they never feel like, if they never been a woman before? Or conscious, how can a trans man say they feel like a man if they never been a man before? I guess like in this is my last fucked up question like this for the night, definitely. But like, what is your response? It's a fucked up question to me. It's like that's crazy. But it's just like, what is the response, man?
My thing is, none of us have ever been men or women or boys or girls at all. We all just out here trying to piece this shit together with gorilla glue. Like nobody has the
Not even
secret
Gorilla
sauce.
Glue.
Like like it's one of those things where it's just like I know how I feel. And based off of the social construction of what we've told ourselves women are, and the idea of what we've constructed women to be socially, that is what makes sense to me. In the same way that you might have a masculine affirming woman who transitions and says, I identify with this feeling, that I can sit in a room full of other men who say this is what it feels like. And as a woman who is masculine identified, may transition, I can represent or I can understand that. And I think that when we have conversations, what's really interesting to me is that if it's something that is not innate, if it's something that's not inherent, how come I could sit in rooms with women and before I say I'm trans, we're having the same conversation. We're having the same experiences. We're talking about the same shit. There's very little conversations that I can have or that I can't have or that I have to excuse myself from when I'm out.
And when I be
Right?
around my trans partners, my trans homeboys, my you know what I'm saying, my nigga eat I got a partner,
You
I ain't
see?
gonna say, but like I'm
Yeah.
hanging with niggas like I don't like they men. You know what I'm saying? When I'm hanging with Kaden, I'm hanging with like these is men. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? It's just like the conversations that we had. Kaden a gay man, that he a gay trans man. But like when we
Yeah.
talking about men shit, there is no preclusion like, hey, bro, you trans, you
I
ain't
was
really man.
about to
So it's like
go a totally different direction.
that don't happen. You know what I'm saying? They don't happen at all. Me, as a straight man, if any nigga view EC, you feel me, or view
Right.
Kaden as like you're
Women.
gay. No, you're gay. You're
Cause
gay.
how?
You're gay. Like, no, you're
Well,
gay.
hold on, because I am gay.
Yes. And I'm saying I'm saying if you know some people be trans folk and be like, ah, it's
Oh,
really
these are men
man.
that you're
I'm
talking about.
these is gay men. These is
These
trans
are gay
men.
Okay,
men.
These
got
are
Yeah.
it.
not gay.
I
You know
got it.
what I'm saying? But it's like
I
these
got it.
trans men. I'm saying these trans men. I'm saying that
Mhm.
if another straight man got in front of me and said, these really women, these trans men, they gay. Like if
Oh,
you
okay,
see
got it.
these men and you see you're gay. And that's fine. I'm not saying that's not bad, but it's like, no.
But also I push back on that because I think that the adverse happens with trans women where you have a girl who is not as passable and then you call that man gay for being with that girl, right? And so I think that we have to be mindful of the idea that beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And everybody has a certain level of femininity or masculinity that they desire in a partner. And that partner just may or may not, identify with the moniker of man or woman. But when it comes down to it, we have to allow people to like what the fuck they like and mind our business. What you eat don't make me shit. The dick that you suck ain't gonna make me swallow. So we have to be very mindful that, like, if it
That's the
don't
t-shirt.
apply, let it fly.
Nah,
Like,
man. What you worried about what the other
I
person got
think
going on like that, man?
I think
Mind your business.
like I agree with what both of y'all are saying. I think that when people have these very insecure notions about what is masculinity, what is a man, what is a woman, and whatnot, they are functioning from a space of feeling as if their version of it is diminished
Mm-hmm.
because this title is now available to this other person. Like this woman is diminished because hope exists. But I think that, but clearly that's fucked up because like I am just because I got painted fingernails does not make Lee any less of a man. And
Yeah.
just because, you know, such and such woman is masculine identified doesn't make Hope any more of a woman. All of these things are abundant, but I do think that there is just, it's all of that is just wrought with patriarchy and old school ideologies that predate all of us to where we feel like all of these things are finite resources and we got to hoard them and we got to have all the masculinity and all of the manliness and all of the womanness to ourselves when really it doesn't matter. As both of y'all said, we just all niggas out here trying to piece this shit together with gorilla glue. And
That's
if the
it.
second that we realize that is the actual human experience,
Mm,
is the second that you let go of the idea that anybody is any more or less of anything than anybody else. You just yourself, bro, or girl, or sis, or person.
Hmm.
And as long as I can respect that, then we ain't never gonna have no problems. The only time we have issue is when we stop respecting them because they're not expressing it or doing it the way I said they should. And that is never appropriate on any level for anybody.
never.
And I think that's just the bottom line is let niggas be niggas and we all be great.
Let kids be kids, right? Like I think that what we have to be
We
mindful
all
of is
need
it.
Toys R Us or Chuck E. Cheese or
Everybody,
wherever it was where kids can be, where a kid can be a kid.
but my thing is being kids includes being inquisitive. Being a kid includes being curious. If you are having children because you want a miniature version of you to get it right the second time, you're doing it wrong.
Mm-mm.
You're doing it wrong, right?
You done
And
triggered everybody with that
a
one, sis.
lot, no, because a lot of people, that's what y'all do.
I live
Oh, I
vicariously
fucked
through your
up.
kid.
And you can't do that. And
Nah,
that's
ain't
why a lot
right.
of y'all are mad when your kids don't follow in your footsteps in the exact way because you were looking for somebody that was going to be you, but better. And when we talk about the idea of protecting kids from adult situations, and especially as it pertains to trans kids, let me be very clear with y'all. Stop allowing the right wing media to make y'all believe that a kid says, I'm trans today. And if they're a
Yeah.
young boy transitioning to a young girl, that they don't have a dick tomorrow. That's
Like
not
that's
how that
not how
works.
that shit work, man. This goes out to you, Torrance Hatch, and followers.
That
Because the
does
truth
not,
is they
that's
may
not how
have a
that
dick
works.
forever.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
And
If
love
that's how they
that
decide to
Like,
live their life.
and love that and love that, but like also there is a space where we're allowed to entertain our children risk like at a safe distance. Like, as parents, it is not dangerous for my kid to go out into the world with a dress on.
hell
It
nah.
is dangerous for my
My
kid to
daughter.
come into contact with people who have issues with the fact that my little boy might have a dress on. And
And that's
so
the nuance you gotta make.
instead of changing the way that our kids have to see or perceive themselves as they're going through their curiosity phase, let's change the way that adults and other fucking people in the world are allowing for their children and themselves to become bullies to people who can't defend themselves. What do you look like as a grown ass 45-year-old man upset about what another bitch is letting her kids do in Toys R Us? Pick up that motherfucking transformer for your kid and get the fuck out.
Get
Like,
out of
why do
there.
you care?
Or
Hey,
the
It's
and
just,
hold
Tony.
on real fast.
Or the
As a
Tony.
parent, hold on real fast. I gotta say this as a parent, real fast.
oh,
Letting the
true.
kids be kids also includes allowing for them to wallow in their own innocence, and you stop prescribing your own insecurities or your own dispositions onto them children. When we start, like, my daughter, 8 years old, we watching Proud Family Reloaded. Now she probably already watched this episode when she was like 6 or 7 because the damn shit been out. It's an episode of a gay influencer that's a man, you feel me, a boy wearing makeup.
Hmm.
A line
Hmm.
for my child to be a child is just a line for her to consume what she's consuming and not going and put my adult ass values, perspectives, and politics on a child. I would argue as a parent, you feel me, that a lot of my fellow straight people, with a lot of my fellow parents, y'all will put y'all own dispositions on your kids. You
Yeah.
will sexualize something for your child, and your child don't even know what sex is. I'm gonna say it again. You will sexualize a mannerism, you will sexualize a word, you will sexualize a dance, you will sexualize this, and your kids do not know what sex is. That is not allowing for your kid to be a kid. That is literally robbing them of their innocence and literally convoluting their psyche based off what you believe and what you don't go with. And that's not to me. I would argue, and I'm a debater too. So if you want to debate me on this shit, let's do
That
it.
part.
Rounds down. Like, hey, you get a constructive, I get a constructive, you get a rebuttal, I get a rebuttal, let people decide. But I would argue that when grown ass people put their grown ass beliefs on children, it is not letting kids be kids. I rest my case, Shauna.
There's
But it happens all the time, unfortunately.
That's my beef. That's
It
why I
somebody.
said it
happens
so passionately.
all the time. When we involve children, we either weaponize children in these very adult conversations between us, or we involve children in these very adult
No
concepts that have nothing to
conversations.
do with
It has
them.
nothing to do with them. Like, why
And the unfortunate part about it is that when my view, my fear is that we force kids to have to make decisions about things that they are not prepared to do by either emulating what they see in the adults in their lives or forcing them to fall on one side or another about things that they don't even have an awareness about, like sexuality,
sexuality?
like sexual expression, like gender, like all these things. Because I can't tell you when I figured out I was a little boy. I cannot tell you when I figured out I was a little boy. But I know that I had to figure it out at some point because I knew I liked little boys. And so I needed time to develop my self perception, just like I needed time to understand what I liked. But when we over sexualize or over encourage children to be straight, little boys don't do this, little girls don't do that. We wear these
Thank you,
clothes,
Jay. Shout
wear
out
these
to you.
colors, and do all these things. We are forcing kids to not be innocent because I think we think innocent just means, oblivious. When really innocent is you give them space to understand who they are for themselves. And I don't think a lot of us as adults want kids to do that. We want them to understand who we want them to be. And that's and now granted I'm nobody's parent, but now that I have a little girl that I absolutely love and adore and want her to live the best possible life, even as an uncle, I just want her to be her. I don't want her to be anything except her. And if one day she tells me I'm not a her, I'm a him, or I'm a them, or I'm a something else,
I'm a loving adult.
great.
Yeah, I'm a shit.
Great. Help me understand because I'm gonna rock with you no matter what. That's my niece and I'm gonna stick beside her.
Shit. What y'all
I
talking about?
just
Shit. Excuse my language.
the
Shit. My language. Fuck y'all.
there, there was a thing that said something about the idea of like, so are we protecting them from heterosexuality? First and foremost, laughable, right? Majority of the world is
Y'all told me
heterosexual.
to let go of the craziness in the
Oh no no no
comments.
no no!
So
But I
I
think
Always
wouldn't even
saying that.
give that one any energy.
yeah, that was. But like, I think that this one was legitimate because I felt like this person has been asking like genuine questions throughout
Questions, yeah.
the thing.
Okay, I didn't
Um,
see that, but go ahead.
and so the idea that you can protect a child from heterosexuality is preposterous, right?
We live in a
A
heteronormative
major-
world.
we live in a very heteronormative world. There's nothing
It's
that you're going to be able
everywhere.
to do to keep children from seeing heterosexuality. What I think that we're saying in the adverse is we should not try to shield them from homosexuality or other forms of love as if there's something wrong with the person loving differently just because they're loving differently. Now, if you got an issue with a gay couple because they scam artists and they be fucking up the church's money,
They're
that's
scam artists.
different. They
Put that on
scam
the scam
artists.
artists though. Don't universalize it and say all gay folks are
Right.
scammers. Don't claim like don't do that though. Don't become disingenuous with what you're
Yeah.
talking about, how you're
Like
doing.
don't because we don't hate every black man because a couple of black men have raped young girls in the family. So my
Definitely.
thing is every single time we see a tabloid about a trans woman, exposing a man for being with her because she didn't get her coin or whatever the case may be, it shouldn't be
Ain't
oh
all
all of
trans
them
women,
bitches
you
is
know.
mess. Like that's not
Yeah,
all
yeah,
trans women. And
yeah.
this is not even a pick me conversation about the oh well I'm not like those girls because
It's
sometimes
not.
if a bitch feel like she got to tell her truth, then she just got to tell her truth and
Yeah.
that's her business.
Take your coins. And then you
But
should have paid up before you ran
you
off.
should have paid up. But I think that like this is not about protecting kids from heterosexuality. It's about reminding them that the world is going to be vast, and no matter what
The
you
world is gonna be
right,
vast.
what no matter what you come into, and no matter what truth you accept for yourself, there are going to be plenty of other people who may not necessarily accept that truth for them, and they are also allowed to be one a part of life, and two you're also allowed to make that person a part of your life without there being an issue.
And let me bring this heteronormativity piece back. A lot of times, us straight cisgender parents, you feel me? I know there are parents that's not straight or not cisgender, but us straight cisgender parents, we talk about. I have no problem with the LGBT community. I just think we shouldn't push sexuality on kids. I just think that no sexuality pushed on kids. You will say that, and then your daughter will watch you and your kids will watch a Disney that's literally centered around some romance. or your kids, so you know what I'm saying, you're sending your kids to Valentine's Day to class to have different cards. So to me, it's like as a straight person, I recognize that I had the privilege to be able to court. I had the privilege to be able to practice on being in a relationship. What I've realized that a lot of us parents, you know what I'm saying, we think about you're gonna be gay outside of my house. It's like, hey, think about how much you learned about relationships from dating when you was in middle school, when you was in high school, and think about how you took that knowledge in your adult life. What you're saying to a young trans person or a young gay person is that they should not be able to ever have that ability or experience because that's something they gotta say after at the household. And I feel like it's hypocrisy. I call it heterosexual hypocrisy because you're saying you going off on the queer people kissing, but when Anna and Kristoff kiss or whatever shit it was, or Simba and goddamn Nala or
Nala.
Nala.
Jasmine, or it's like I can think of a multitude of examples that is literally sexuality and sex being marketed to children. But you
Let me
gonna
add
blow a
one
gasket.
thing.
They got these gay people kissing, they pushing on the kids. I'm talking about I can't even watch a Marvel. Me and my son watch goddamn Marvel. We watching Marvel movies. It's romances throughout there. So where
Let
is
me
the
add
outrage?
one thing there, Lee, because Dolly said my child better know how to read and write before telling me who they like. And what I will
It's on
offer
you as a parent.
to what I will offer, and again, I'm nobody's parent, but I was a little gay kid. And I will tell you firsthand that my ability to learn was greatly impacted by being seen in the classroom. I said my saving grace was a band teacher, Miss Forrest left when I was in 7th grade. And she finally saw me. And I went from being a failing student to straight A's because I had one person that was just like, I know you different. She didn't go as far as to call it gay or straight or anything, but she just said, I know you're different and it's okay. And so as much as we want to say that studies come before everything else, the hard part about it is the
I do
hard
think that.
part for my parents to understand is that I was not able to see anything until somebody could see me. And sometimes that is going to be grappling with a tough truth about your kid that you might not be ready to deal with. And they were going to present it to you before you're ready to handle it. But you got to be able to see your kid as a whole person so that they can navigate the world as a whole person. And so,
Mhm.
as much as I would love to say that, just keep your head in the book, these kids live whole lives way before we think they do.
Definitely.
I
Definitely.
knew I liked little boys when I was 4 years old
Yeah.
in pre-K. I had an awareness that I was different than how I had been taught in the first 4 years of my life. And it wasn't until 7th grade when somebody was just like, I know you're different,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that turned everything around for me. So we want to say these things as if they are in bubbles, like studies in attraction and agency and self-awareness are all different. But friend, I want to offer to you that everything is interconnected. That's why we started with intersectionality. I come into the world as a whole human being, and the more that my parents tried to parse through and allow me to be certain things and not other things, is the more I couldn't in my head engage in anything because I had to figure out who I could be in certain spaces. And until somebody gave me the space to be all of me, wasn't until is when I actually turned on and was able to be, a dope ass person that, just happened to run funny and have a high pitched voice. But that was okay because I
Oh,
did
that's
run funny,
funny.
even though I was fast because I'm from Kenya.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great segment to be able to end on. Y'all see the unlikely throuple. We're gonna bring y'all unfiltered conversations and shit that you've been wanting to ask, shit you've been wanting to say, or shit you've been trying to say and you didn't know how to say it. You know what I'm
Excuse
saying?
your language, Lee.
The excuse my
Excuse your
language
language.
tour is going on right
You're
now.
doing a
The
lot of cussing.
Atlanta
Excuse
ticket
your
is,
language.
is 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 available. Actually, the Atlanta show is sold out. Somebody said they RSVP, but they got lucky because you know what I'm saying. Yeah, the Atlanta show is
Yeah.
sold out. We're gonna be in DC in November. We're gonna be in Houston in December. The link is gonna be in the link has been put in the chat multiple times. I'll drop it in there right now
Yes.
one more time before we leave. Any last things I want to say to the people? And I'm gonna play like some going out things. This is what I want for us. When I show y'all what I got right here, I want this for us to make it where I start the conversation with this and end the conversation with this. Y'all ready?
Spontaneous percussion.